Congratulations.
That's great.
That's
awesome.
Thank you.
So promotion gets you with us?
So.
Temporarily. Just saying, we might need to revisit promotion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, everybody.
Here before, you were gone.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. This is Tuesday, May 2nd. This is the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting. I detect a quorum. We have one resolution and then two bills on second reading, so we'll start with the resolution. RS 2023-2138, Broken Syracuse, Allen, and others. Approves an application for a Victims of Crime Act grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration to the Metro Nashville Police Department to fund counselor and victim advocate positions, purchase supplies, and subsidize travel.
So moved. Second.
Second. Any discussion or questions? On your homework? Pretty straightforward. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Non voting? You adopt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In favor, 0 against. Very good. On with the bills on second reading.
Well done, Phil.
Nicely done.
All right. Thank you. Well done. Yes. Good to see you. All right. On the bills in the second reading, BL 2023-1688, Hancock, Bradford, and Stiles, which actually it should be Bradford, right? Hancock and Stiles, I guess. Amends Chapter 8.04 and 8.08 relative to the regulation of animals. Can I get a promotion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember, welcome.
Thanks for having me. So when y'all get to chambers, you're going to have this on your desk. This is basically a bullet point of what the substitute. I guess I should probably move the substitute.
So we have. So are we moving a substitute and then we're amending the substitutes?
Yes.
Okay. So let's move the substitute first. Do I have? Okay.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Now you're on your side.
Okay. So it's removing the leash requirements. It originally was 8 feet in the at-large section. We're taking that out. We're adding a timeline for obtaining pet licenses if you're moving from out of state. It removes a duplicated section under licenses. It also removes some confusing language that came up in some of the community feedbacks where it seemed like MAC was having carte blanche to go into people's houses and check. So we stripped that out. And we are requiring, when it comes to physical control, that they are in full command. Some of y'all have seen some of the emails where people are complaining about voice command.
What is that?
So we are taking voice command out. Voice command is basically if your animal's off leash and you're like, come or heel, and they stay with you and you're controlling them by voice. We're taking that out because it's a public safety. Like, it takes a split second for your dog to lose focus and gone. So
they have to be on a leash?
They have to be on a leash and some kind of physical control.
Okay.
So when you say you're taking voice command out, you're taking the exception out of the...
Right. So they have to be in full control of the owner. But like I said, you're going to have this on your desk. It's going to have everything the substitute does. I asked the committee to move the substitute or pass the substitute.
Is Health Department cool with everything?
Yes, and I'd just like to say.
I'm just.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. You're like, I'm so sorry. I'm not even looking. Go ahead.
Councilmember, you're recognized.
I'm so sorry.
Go ahead. You're good.
I can go.
Yeah.
I want to thank Councilman Bradford. He's put a lot of work into this, and it is, you recall we had the much larger, more overhauling bill, like, I guess last year, whenever it was. This one is far more targeted. It updates the language. It takes out some stuff we didn't really need. Probably removing the voice command is probably the most substantive thing in here. It's not a huge problem, but it is a problem. And I appreciate all the effort that he and Hannah, too, have put into this.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councilman?
I just want to know if it's okay for Councilmember Johnson if we could have a vote.
What do you think about it?
Sure.
Any other questions for the sponsor, Health Department, anybody, about the substitute? No? All right, all in favor of the substitute?
Aye.
Against? Not voting? You adopt the substitute. All right, so now we have an amendment from Councilmember Gamble. May I get a motion to?
So moved.
All right, there you go. Councilmember.
Thank you, Chair. And this is a friendly amendment that basically adds that if a dog is running at large and if that at-large dog, while roaming, desecrates or destroys public or private property, that would be a violation of this section. So that just adds that as another bullet in the section for violations.
good.
And yes, I consider it a friendly amendment. We've talked with Health and MAC, and we're fine with it.
Very good. Any other questions on that amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Not voting? All right, so now we have the bill as substituted and amended. So all in favor of the bill as substituted and amended?
Aye.
Against? Any not voting? All right, so the bill passes as substituted and amended. Thank you and thank you.
Sure.
And finally, on to BL 2023-1740, Rosenberg, Evans, and Stiles. Amends Section 11.12-.080 of the Metropolitan Code related to the discharge of weapons. Can I get a motion?
Seconded.
All right, thank you. And Councilmember Stiles, you're on this bill, and you're the only one that is.
Discharge of weapons.
Neither Councilmember Rosenberg or Evans is here to talk about it.
Oh, she's in traffic.
Would you like to talk about this?
I'm 100% in favor of it. As someone who is suffering from multiple complaints, I believe that this is a good measure. I understand there are some people that are accustomed to being able to shoot guns off on their property, but right now, the way we're growing, it is disturbing for veterans, for children, and so just ask for your support.
What does it do?
I was gonna say, can we get somebody to tell us what exactly it does? Because I thought it was illegal to discharge a weapon anyway.
So it's illegal to discharge a gun in the USD. In the GSD, you can discharge a firearm, when it's light outside, before dusk. This creates another limitation that would say that you cannot shoot a firearm within 500 feet of a residence. Now, there's two more exceptions that would be put in. One would be you could do it on your property or you could do it on property with the consent of the property owner. But that would include, if you have two property owners and they're both within 500 feet, you'd have to have everybody's permission. And then it's also kind of a catch-all exception because there are a lot of exceptions to firing a firearm in state law. So there's also an exception that says when provided for by state law.
Okay. Because I think it'd be helpful to know what those exceptions are actually. Could we get a list of because I just go with
We have a
it's against the law.
comprehensive list right now, but it would be like if you were, firing your weapon in self-defense. That would be an exception because state law allows for that.
Yeah.
So it would be things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
So will this law only apply to GSD? General Service District?
Outside of the USD, correct. Because in the USD, you cannot fire a firearm.
Okay, and that is indicated in the
I think
legislation?
that's in the code.
Okay.
I don't have the code in front of me right now.
So this is just for the GSD, not the USD, because the USD already has its.
Correct.
Where you can't.
So is that confusing to have rules for GSD and then different rules for USD? Why wouldn't it be just everything operates under the same thing as USD? To just have some consistency across the county.
So there is currently a difference. Currently, you're not allowed to shoot a firearm in the USD, but you are in the GSD, during daylight hours.
So this makes it consistent across the county, whether you're in the USD or GSD?
No, it just adds another, restriction on where you can fire a firearm.
In the GSD?
In the GSD.
Not within 500 feet of another residence,
Correct.
et cetera.
Okay.
Co-sponsor, did you want to speak to this?
I am kind of surprised that this isn't going to be deferred again, but I haven't talked to the sponsor since the last meeting, and I know that there was some interest from some residents about amending it. So I'm kind of surprised to walk in and hear discussion on it, really.
Move for a one meeting deferral.
I'm not comfortable.
I'll move
doing
for a
that.
one meeting deferral. I mean, if we need to work on it, my concern about it would be just it's like, well, what's the rule where you are and creating some confusion on when, not that I'm for shooting guns off, just to make that clear. I'm just saying, if we're gonna have these rules, for it to be really clear about where you are and when it's allowed or when it's not allowed and what these exceptions are and all that. I just want to create I don't know.
Are you suggesting the GSD and the USD should be the same?
I mean, I don't know. I just would. I feel like, in a way, I don't know. I think it's worth a discussion to figure. I mean, like, how are you supposed to enforce, and who's supposed to be enforcing it? And it's like, well, I'm in the GSD, and so I mean, people. I don't think a lot of people even understand the difference between GSD and USD. And so, if somebody's like, well, I heard that they, it's just confusing for most people. It's confusing for me. All my district is in the USD, so I don't. That's why I'm like, I thought it was all illegal.
Yeah, you have half and half, you'll get those.
And I get it, but that's why I'm saying, if you have an issue with things going on in the GSD that you don't want going on, would it be more appropriate to just have the same rules for GSD and USD as it relates to firing weapons?
So I would say,
I don't know.
to that, I mean, we have some different rules already, right, for USD and GSD. So if we were gonna talk about one thing being uniform, then we start talking about everything being uniform across the board, not just this legislation, but trash collection, for example, which is a popular topic.
But those aren't rules. Those are city services. So you can't conflate city services with rules about firing a firearm.
The second, your third.
Go ahead. I'll
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add to the discussion. I have a large part of my district is general service district, and people do have large properties, several acres, and they shoot on their properties. Or we have people who just drive down the street and decide they just want to shoot in the air. So we do have problems.
We have those too, actually.
I appreciate this bill into trying to regulate and rein in some of that, what do you call it, Wild Wild West type shooting.
Yeah.
But I agree that maybe there needs to be some more discussion on how we make sure that it's clear and that the sponsor is comfortable with moving it forward.
Councilman.
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate the discussion and appreciate the point that you're bringing up. And from my view, I see just markedly different geography. And we have a member of our Public Safety Committee who served for decades on the police department. So I would ask you, really, as one who's involved in policing, we've had rules that are different. How does that square with the police department? Is it hard to?
I don't think it makes it hard to have the two. Now, obviously, we had a lot more country 20 years ago than we do now. That we're getting more dense out in the GSD in many places. But you know, if I got a farm and I want to go out and shoot my gun, I don't see any problem with that. And most police officers, I don't think, would. Now, as it becomes more dense and I got neighbors closer to me, it becomes more of a concern, and I think that's what they're trying to address here. And I'm supportive, kind of looking at.
And I guess the question is really designed at: is it how, from a standpoint of enforcement, how difficult is it to really know where to cross that line if there were different rules for the GSD than there are for the USD for people who are enforcing it?
I don't think that poses a difficulty from what I'm seeing. I mean, we've had it different for years.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
People with judgment for the most part, because
Right, well.
none of these are easy to enforce.
Councilman Rhodes?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, uniformity would be really nice, but kind of to the point about the large parcels of land, kind of, I represent exclusively GSD, and as our land use has changed and development has come to some of these large parcels, the opportunity to shoot guns on farms and things of that nature, there's just more houses that are closer. And so when I originally talked to the sponsor, when he first introduced this about me being a co-sponsor, he and I had very similar experiences. And so your point, my experience with MNPD has not been where there's a challenge with enforcement. It's more of a challenge with kind of existing residents being thoughtful about where some of those boundaries are. And so kind of in some further conversation, like even with some of our peers that are not in this room, kind of related to some of the community stakeholders who had expressed feedback to the sponsor. There was discussion really about kind of the proximity to where the road is and shooting guns. And then also, looking at, if zoning could play into it, how to make sure that people that have the right, have larger parcels can continue to do that. But like in my community, we've got land that's large enough where owners that don't live on their land, will invite community members from all over the county to come and shoot, which creates more, kind of cascading challenges around noise and a variety of other issues. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Councilman?
How is the permission? I read you have to get permission from your neighbor. Is this in writing or just a nod?
I mean, it's a good question.
How are we going to do that?
That is something that I need to talk to Dave about in terms of getting permission, because it's hard to track. I know for me, I've got maybe on one street alone, there's one family that has a huge farm in the back, and it's up against several, within that 500 feet. So I'll get complaints about all of those at the same time.
So I think we're on the right track with the idea, but I think there's some details that need to be worked out clearly, even with the 2 co-sponsors that are in here. So I'm going to move for a 1-meeting deferral. I hope you support so that we can work up, because you can't amend it on 3rd. So.
Any discussion on the 1-meeting deferral? All in favor of 1-meeting deferral?
Hi.
Any against? Not voting? You vote in favor of a 1-meeting deferral. Thank you. Any other business before this committee?
Thank you, Chair.
We stand adjourned. Thank you all.